Hey everyone, welcome to this lecture. All right, now that you've gotten your first speech done, I wanted to talk about some of the lessons that you can take from this first go round and implement it in your next speech. I wanted to talk about the things you did well and areas that I can see general improvement for the class. I think everybody stepping out and doing their first speech, that's pretty brave. It's not an easy thing to do. Public speaking is hard. It doesn't matter if you were in a boardroom or if you're online with your classmates on Teams. It's not an easy thing to do, but at the same time, we want to work one step at a time at getting better. So, probably as you went back and watched yourself, you notice things you can improve upon, but let's talk about some of those things now. But before we talk about what could be worked upon, I just wanted to say one that I was really encouraged to see people pick some very interesting quotes and inspirational people from their lives to talk about. I thought you had some very engaging topics. I thought a lot of the speeches were well organized and you communicated very well, you transitioned very well, and you had a good introduction, body, and conclusion. That was something I think that really stood out from a lot of the speeches. Everything else is just figuring out the details as we go and implementing them into your speech. So, one thing, and this is kind of a general note, and it's certainly not for everybody, but it's very important. Make sure you are aware of the directions. Read what is on Canvas before you email me. Make sure the couple hours before class that you're not emailing what speech are we doing. Stay ahead of things. I usually give about 2 weeks on these assignments, so you should have a pretty good idea before the day of the speech. But just in general, are you looking at the small details like the time range that the speech should be? So we had a few people come just shy or maybe sometimes significantly shy of the required 2 minutes. Are you checking that to make sure that you're hitting the correct time? But look at the details and look at ways you can improve with just by checking it out. Make sure you're completely understanding what's going on. The other thing is practice. Practice, practice, practice. Find somebody that you can maybe, or even me, hit me up and let's practice your speech together on Teams. Find a friend, find a family member, somebody you could practice either with in person or that you can practice over Teams with and get better. While you're doing it, grab your phone, put the stopwatch on, and hit go right as you're starting so you can start to see what your time is going to be. All right. And if you're consistently coming in short, you might need to add more to it or slow down. That was one thing that I noticed too, is because you're nervous, you might be talking too fast. So go ahead and slow down. Make sure that that's not the reason that you're coming in under time. A nice conversational tone is what you want to go for. But just make sure that you are practicing well. So I think one of the things that will help is your mindset going into the speech. Because a lot of people were talking about being nervous, I think you have to, one, psychologically motivate yourself to say, I'm going to do great on this. If you go in with a defeatist attitude of saying, I'm not going to do good, I hate doing this, I don't want to do it, it's going to be hard to do well. So picture yourself in the job that you want to have, giving a talk to your coworkers. All right, think of how would I want to present myself then? How do I want my speech to be? What information am I delivering? And am I delivering it in an effective, clear way? So put yourself in the mindset that this isn't a class, this is my job I'm preparing for. Imagine you're in a boardroom. Imagine you're in a Zoom call with a client when you're talking. How do I want to seem? I run a company called Book 7 Entertainment. We do Zoom calls all the time with clients. And I sit there and think, how do I want to communicate with this client so that they understand what it is I am talking about? It becomes very important that you really engage a positive mindset in doing this, especially if it's something you don't want to do. I kind of consistently saw that as a lot of people who were just so happy when they were done. All right, that's fine. That's why we're practicing with this. But you got to tell yourself you can do it. In the grand scheme of things, it's 2 minutes long. you're going to get past it. You're going to do fine. The more you confront your fear, the more you're going to improve on these skill sets. So visualize yourself succeeding. This is kind of funny. My brother, who is a professor at St. Vincent's, when COVID hit and everything went virtual, we all used to laugh and say he probably has a lot of Zoom calls like this. Maybe you've seen it, maybe you haven't. Okay, you don't want your speeches to go like that. So be aware of what's around you. Be aware of who's around you. Be aware of the noise that's around you. You don't want distractions going on in the background of your speech. On Teams, when you first go to log in, there's kind of a, at least it is on my end, there's sort of a black box. You click join first, and then a black box will pop up and it'll give you the option to blur your background. I suggest that as an option. If you can't find it, we can jump on Teams and look for it. I know right now I'm not, I don't have a background blurred. And to be honest, I have a very excitable cat who just got into catnip. So she's running around like crazy. Kind of hard to avoid some things sometimes, but for the most part, you want to be aware of those things when you're presenting online. Is how am I presenting the room that I'm in? Another thing is get to where you're comfortable. Get to where you're going to feel confident in giving your speech. Put yourself in a maybe it's not your dorm room. Maybe it's going to the classroom where we're offering class, that you go in there to do your speech, because it's going to feel more like you're in a setting where you feel more prepared to do a speech. Whatever it is or however it is, be aware of your surroundings. Make sure your cell phone's off, things like that. That's not going to, anything's going to distract you.
Scandals happen all the time.
Uh, okay, so this is the number one biggest thing that we all need to work on going forward, and that is the level at where your camera is. You want a good eye level with your camera, and you need to be looking at your camera when you talk. I know it's really weird, and it's kind of like you'll want to look at yourself or look, have your eye kind of wander around the frame as to where to look. But as you're giving your speech, eye level, looking at your camera. It's odd. It's really odd. You may even minimize Teams while you're doing it. So right now, I can't see myself. I don't know what's behind me necessarily. I'm talking to an inanimate object that is my laptop. It's really weird that I don't have that human reaction to what I'm saying, that there's not that response mechanism that's giving me feedback. Remember we talked about the different, there's a sender or receiver of that message, and there's this constant cycle of information going back and forth. It's weird not to have that, but sometimes it makes it easier to talk directly at a camera if you have your own screen, your own window where you're at minimized. It might make it easier. It depends. But the point is you want to be nice and eye level. And the reason is that you want an image like this. Okay. We can see a nice level picture that's coming through to us. Now just stop and think about that for a moment. Part of what this technology affords is that I can have a meeting with somebody in another part of the country, in another part of the world, instantly. Yet at the same time, I want to mimic and I want to replicate the experience of being together. So if I'm going to meet a client, chances are I'm not going to sit down low and look up at them. I'm not going to be up high and look down, right? I'm going to be at eye level. We're sitting at a table, we're sitting in a coffee shop, something like that. We are eye level with each other. So as you're presenting your speeches, you want to be eye level with your audience as much as you can. It presents you better. It allows us to take you more seriously, to be more focused on what you're saying and not looking under your chin. or down on you in just an unflattering angle. Now, that said, a lot of you are using your iPads and they kind of fold into that iPad triangle. So if this is your camera, it's always going to kind of be shooting up. Try flattening it out and using books or something to prop it up for you so that your camera is kind of shooting straighter. Just something to be aware of. There's times that I have a little, I don't even know if it's got a name other than it just raises my laptop up about 4 inches. I'm not using it right now. We just moved. And so I don't know where it is at the moment. It's in with all boxes of stuff. But that extra few inches that it could raise up will kind of put me more at eye level. So you can tell, you probably see a little bit of my ceiling in there. That low angle, not the most flattering. So being lower in your chair, something like that, that gets you right on with the camera. The other thing, if you look at that lower picture of Tom Cruise, in the film world, that's called a canted angle. What that does is it psychologically tells us something is wrong, something is askew. So you got to make sure with your camera, you're not doing that too. Nice, centered, eye level, and not this kind of thing where you're over here, where you have all this negative space. Again, it works great in a film like it did in this one, Ida. Kind of an unbalanced shot might, be very great for film. Not so much for a meeting or giving a speech. So be aware of that. Again, nice, centered, eye level shot is what you want. Not low, not high, centered in there where you have a little bit of headroom. Headroom's kind of one of those things where it can sometimes be a little bit hard to achieve. I have to be a little bit closer to my laptop because of the microphone. So if you have the capability to be a little bit back, that's great too. But I tend to have to come in closer, or I have to, when I'm done, go in and edit the audio. Small little thing that is worth noting is the rocking or excess movement, clicking pins, rocking back and forth. I noticed some people are in those dorm chairs that, are pretty much flat, and then they have that little tilt to them that you could just kind of do that. You want to be up, centered, nice, confident pose throughout. Avoid excess hand gestures, touching your face, things like that. You can use your hands, of course. Sometimes it helps. Sometimes it serves no purpose. But just be aware of that you're cognizant of everything you're doing in a given moment. That if you're so wrapped up in what you're saying, you lose focus of everything else. So if you haven't prepped well, the words will just come naturally. I've practiced it 100 times. I know what it is I'm going to say. Now I can become more aware of what are the other things that I'm doing. Am I rocking? Am I doing this? Am I clicking? Whatever the case may be aware of that. Take a breath. I didn't see a lot of breath taking. It's just a speech. Be aware. Slow down. Center yourself. If you get lost, so let's say this is a note card that I have, and I have my bullet points on there. What I would suggest doing is, and this is kind of one that I've used before, so you're not referring back to something, and we're not reading. We don't want to read our speeches. That was kind of a big thing too, is people would, have their speech written here and they would deliver it word for word this way. No, we give our speeches directly to the camera. We're not referring back. If you need to write out bullet points, so it's like, okay, this is my jumping off spot. Set a note card for your next one right next to you. I'm doing a speech on blah, 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 blah. Blah, 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 blah. But I want to stay here. If I absolutely have to, if I'm just that categorically nervous about this, if I don't have it down, the more I'm looking here, the more I'm disengaging with my audience and what I have to say, right? So you might think right now what you're saying is not necessarily that important. You're building up the tools to deliver speeches that will be important for you for your career. And you don't want that potential client, you don't want that boss seeing you have to refer constantly back to something. You want to be poised and articulate in what you have to say. So in the future, look at the camera when you're giving your speech. Right at the camera. Not at your written out speech, nothing like that. You are looking here and you're speaking in a casual tone. That's the extemporaneous style that we're going for. So don't overthink it. I think that can be everybody's own worst enemy, is overthinking everything. Again, take a breath. If you start to have to disengage by looking around, okay, what was the last thing I was thinking? You were removing your audience from that moment. We're engaged with you. They don't seem to be knowing what they're talking about. I'm less engaged with you, right? So you want to keep our focus, keep our attention. What you're saying is important to us. We are investing our time to listen to what you have to say. Now you have to say it in a clear and concise way. So if you start feeling like you said one word wrong, or you can't remember how you're transitioning to your next fact, take a breath and then move into it. If you have to briefly refer back to your note, that's fine. Okay, but we don't want to be giving a speech looking down our way like that. Don't overthink it. That can be hard. It could be like, oh, I just said the dumbest thing. I've done that before, where it's like you'll like blend words together. Like, you're trying to say like, hey, how are you? Or something. And it comes out like, hey, how are you? And you're like, oh, did I really just say that? So don't overthink it. Just move on to the next part of what you're trying to say. Don't become your own worst enemy. Now, this is something I definitely struggle with a lot. The likes. You don't even realize you're doing it half the time. It's something that I'm trying to work on with it, that I'm not constantly, I notice it when I go back and I listen to my lectures and I post them, like scrumming through, and every 5 seconds, just something to consider. Be cognizant of what you're saying. If you start in the beginning and you say, I am going to avoid saying, like. And you can say the word like, but not like, like he's like, what, like, in an unnecessary way. See, I just said, right there. If you tell yourself ahead of time, I'm going to work on this. I'm going to work on avoiding saying this. Great. That's all you got to do. And you'll notice it starts to go down. Fewer and fewer, like. Dress the part. What do I mean by that? Don't wear baseball hats. Don't wear a t-shirt, right? Get business casual. Put on a shirt with a collar. You don't need a tuxedo or a ball gown or anything like that, but look nice. This is 2 important minutes of your academic career to look professional, to take yourself seriously, and us to take you seriously. So look the part. Dress for success. All right? It just, again, going forward, you want to look like somebody that, hey, I want to hire that person. That person did an excellent job with this, or this. They know what they're doing. And that's just something that will kind of subtly, or, we won't even always be able to express like, oh, he dressed up really nice with it. But we're going to sit back and say, this person was really poised and confident, and it just took himself seriously, or herself seriously. And we'll notice that. We'll see that. I want you to want to do well on this, though. I want you to take yourself seriously. So that's something to consider as well. Again, don't wear a tuxedo, but you're only giving a few speeches per year. Might as well look good for it. And the great thing is you're on Zoom, so you could look nice. When I used to work at CBS, the anchors, they would have on a suit jacket, shirt and tie, and they'd be wearing shorts underneath because you can't see it. So if there is a benefit of being online, it's that you only need to be business casual in what the camera can see. Make sure you have good lighting. So I use a light like this that I broke. There we go. And you can change the color temperature, some of them with it to match what kind of lighting source you have. A few people, the image was just a little dark. Bring a lamp near you or get near a window. Make sure your background is not too bright. I know mine can be, but normally I'll blur it out and it's not distracting. Um, but just yeah, try and get some sort of a light source near where you're talking so we can see your face, we can read what it is you're trying to say, and we can follow along with you. Okay, this is off topic, but I wanted to bring it up. So the emails that I am getting, not all of them, but some of them, things to consider. So this kind of falls in the grand scheme of communication, right? It's not a public speech at all, but it's a part of good communication. So in your emails, make sure that you're having some sort of hello in the beginning, good afternoon, even just FOSS, comma, who you are, what class you're in, the section. I'm in your Tuesday, Thursday, 1 o'clock. What the details are. I was away. My team was playing in Florida this week, whatever. I'd like to know what I missed for class and if there's a good time to get on Teams with you to go over what I missed. Warmest regards, your name. So I get a lot of misclassed what I do, or misclass. What am I doing for speech? What am I doing for the speech? The I isn't capitalized. There's spelling errors. There's grammar. I'm not looking for, any kind of book to be written or anything like that. But I would say take yourself seriously. Look at this more like that you are in a profession as opposed to a college student. So you want to make sure that you are being business professional and you want me to take you seriously as an academic. And part of that is just good communication skills. So nothing formal. And I come from a Hollywood background, whereas if you wrote an email more than 2 sentences, somebody's going to be mad because you're so busy. The last thing you want to do is spend your day responding to emails. So I'm not looking for anything lengthy, just professional. Always good to consider. All right. Again, well done on your first speeches, and I look forward to what you do in the future. Let me know if you have any questions, and again, good job.